Hello, Tandlers, and welcome to TandL Talks, the podcast for, about, and featuring fabulous educators. I'm your host, Nancy. Today we're stepping into the wonderfully hands-on, question-powered world of elementary science instruction. I'm joined by two outstanding teachers and science cadre members, Carrie Garcia and Christine Livernash. Together they represent second grade and fourth grade perspectives, and they bring deep classroom experience, curiosity, and practical wisdom to the conversation. In this episode, we talk about science curriculum maps and pacing, vertical alignment across grade levels, super important, why science instructional time matters more than ever, and how science instruction builds not just knowledge, but collaboration, confidence, and joy in learning. You'll also hear powerful reflections about influential teachers, integrated curriculum, and what happens when students get to build, test, question, and discover. Let's jump into the conversation. Hello and welcome to TandL Talks, Carrie and Christine. Can you introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Okay, I'll go first. Christine Livernash, second grade, Meeker Elementary. I've been teaching second grade for 10 years.
Wow.
I know. And then I student taught in second grade, and I've been in the same room, in the same building, so I only know my Meeker world, but it's great. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I have 2 kids and a husband. Been married for 3 years and just came back from maternity leave. So still getting into the things, but yeah.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thanks.
I am Carrie Garcia. I teach 4th grade at Meeker. I've been there for about 6 years. I taught 6th grade before, so this is my 4th year in 4th grade. I am also married, and I got to go to Christine's wedding when she got married. I have been married for 22 years, and I have my 3 kids. I have a 14, 16, and a 20-year-old, so my hands full.
Oh.
And Carrie was also my para.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, back in
the day.
Yeah, I know. Man, now I feel old. Okay.
It's a small world. As big as this district is, it really is a small world, right?
Yeah.
Big time.
Yes, for sure.
So you two are part of the science cadre, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I always like to start by asking people to tell me about a teacher who has had an influence on you.
I'll go first. My favorite teacher was Mr. Steingraus. He was my 10th and 11th grade history teacher, and history was not my favorite subject, but he made it my favorite subject. So he just was a really great teacher. The lessons were engaging. The classroom was fun. I always felt like he was fair and he included everyone. And so and I still talk to him every once in a while. And so it feels really good because it's kind of come full circle.
Great.
I always wanted to be a teacher, so I liked a lot of my teachers, and they all kind of blended together. But my grandma was a teacher, and so she technically was my first teacher.
Yes.
She was the superintendent over at Bethel a long time ago, obviously. So she really inspired me to be a teacher, and she started with all those inquiry questions when I was super little, and I just remember looking at photos, and she'd be like, what's going on in that photo? Why do you think they're there? What's the story behind it? And she'd make up these stories and have ideas of who the characters were, and it just really got me intrigued in reading specifically, but also that science inquiry of questioning the world around you. And we'd go and look for tadpoles out in our farm that we had, and so she was really my first teacher, I guess, per se. But my other influential teacher was my second grade teacher, which is kind of ironic that I teach second grade. She was always so happy and excited, but she was also firm and strict in certain expectations. And she just had a high expectation for all of the kids, and more so for me, because I was just they say the worst students become the best teachers. So I believe I was one of those. But I always was terrible at handwriting and would go really quickly. And because of her, I do so well in writing. I would not know how to write or have like proper penmanship if I didn't have her, because she made me sit at one of those circle tables and work on my handwriting every single day. Also, I talk to a lot of people, so that way I would be away from the people to talk. But yeah, so she definitely made me love writing.
Yeah.
In her fun way.
I hear a lot when people answer that question, I hear a lot of the things that you two mentioned, that relationship piece, engaging. I love that you weren't a big fan of history until you had the right teacher who inspired you. And I just think that's that reminder for all of us that the work we do is so important. And the work that we do as teachers impacts these little humans, not just this year, but for the whole rest of their lives. That is a really powerful thought. So thank you both for sharing.
Of course.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the science cadre. You have been meeting with the science cadre today. Today, you've been looking at curriculum maps and pacing guides. Was there any insight that you gained from that, or an aha moment where you're like, oh, we need to do this?
Well, I was lucky to be on the science cadre last year and then on the core connections cadre as well. And so we were sort of lucky in the fact that the way the district was doing it was the way we were doing it in core connections as well. We were doing all the same modules. And so that really worked out good for us. I like that we left the one module out that we didn't need, that I felt like we could hit the standards in the other ones, because as a classroom teacher, it's really challenging trying to make sure we get everything in that we need to get in a day. So that I feel like it's very whole and complete what we have, and I'm excited to teach it.
Great.
Yeah, I've been on the science cadre for 6 years now since we adopted Twig. So I was on one of the first ones to pick out Twig. And so I've absolutely loved the curriculum since we've gotten it. I love the hands-on, and I just love the connections to our CKLA, which is great.
Right.
Because I was also on the literacy cadre too when it first came out for CKLA. But it's really cool to see my kids in my classroom making the connections without me having to say anything. Like, they can make the connection of, we were talking about our February number corner with the flags, and we kind of dig a little bit deeper into the countries that we go and see in second grade. And then we were talking about Valley Forge, and then we were coming up with those in science. And they're like, oh my gosh, we learned about that. And then that's between two mountains and it's a river. And you're like, yes, those are the connections that we want kids to make in the classroom. So it's really cool because when they go outside and see the things around them, they can make those connections. I love science.
Yeah.
It's just fun.
It is fun. Kids love science.
They do. They get so excited
Love
for
science.
it. That's the biggest thing that I find.
So you talked a little bit about deciding which modules might be compacted or adjusted. So what makes those kinds of decisions maybe more complex than they appear?
I think really hitting the standards is, we really have to look at the science standards and make sure that we're covering all of those so that our kids are prepared for the next grade level. The whole idea is we can look at our ELA curriculum, and we know that we have a unit in ELA that is our geology unit that really pairs with two of our science units. And so the redundancy and the repetitiveness gets to be a lot. And so I think it was a little easier for us to pull out that unit. It wasn't the same unit that they pulled out last year. So I'm excited to be on the team that sort of gets to kind of move that forward. And I heard from my partner today that they were super excited that we included Module 5 back, that they love that unit. And I was like, we can't be not doing Module 5. This is the best one. And so it's hard pulling out units or trying to decipher all of that and figure it all out. But at the same time, when we know that we're teaching the curriculum with fidelity, we know that we're hitting those standards. And that's what's important.
Yeah, I know in second grade we have My Journey West and Westward Expansion, and we really want to they are the same thing. It's just one is taking you on a different journey and talking, but they have the same vocabulary. They're talking about the exact same things. One's just more people-oriented, one's more landform-oriented. How can we kind of put those together? And it's cool to see how fun lessons could be integrating both of those things together instead of just listening to a reader or talking about vocabulary. You can also have hands-on, look at the landforms, talk about the landforms, see an interactive like map that shows you deeper into those landforms, see the different elevations, like digging in deeper like that, I think builds more of that knowledge that we want for our kids. And then also it puts it in a different spot in their working memory, which allows them to be able to make those connections later on for the next grade level. I know second and fourth, we do a lot of very similar things. It's just theirs is one step further. So if I can prep them for that before they get to fourth grade, that's kind of cool if they see those connections. They're like, oh yeah, in second grade we did this. And I remember we were working on these landforms and now we can see the people that has to do with it. I don't know. That's the cool thing.
Looking at the vertical teaming today was excellent. Being able to see how this standard follows a student from kindergarten through fifth grade was really kind of cool. I haven't looked at it like through that lens yet. And so being able to see that and see, oh, this is what you're looking at. Oh, that makes sense because then we do this. So I really like those, being able to see that the whole line from K through 5.
Yeah. And then also the gaps too. We can also see
Right.
the gaps where we're like missing information. We're like, oh, this is super important because they're not going to get it again until fourth grade. So, or they have something in kindergarten and they're not getting it till fourth grade, or they're not getting it till third grade. And then we can see where in second grade it does kind of hit it, but not really, and how important that is to make that connection to what they've learned before. So then they can continue it to the next grade and the next grade. Because that's kind of cool to see as well.
That was a super powerful activity that the cadre did this morning, where you did look at exactly that. What does that look like when we lay it all out vertically and look at kindergarten through fifth grade, and just the importance that every single grade level has to do their part so that kids are ready.
Yeah, that's why when you're talking about taking something out, you're just like, do we have to take it out, or is there another place where we're hitting it because you know that they need it for a certain
absolutely.
other spot? So it's not that we want to take away that learning. We just want to add it in a purposeful way. So then that way they're getting everything. So then they're not missing that information by the time they get to those upper grades.
So one thing that you also did this morning was you were looking at the feedback from our teachers, and we asked teachers to include their feedback on our curriculum maps for exactly this reason, so that our cadre can take a look and make adjustments. Were there any patterns or themes that you saw in the feedback from our teachers?
We definitely saw some in fourth grade. The main one we saw was Module 3 in TWIG is time traveling tour guides. And we as teachers want to teach that when we're teaching our CKLA Unit 5 geology unit. And it didn't work out that way this year. And so that was one of the things where we were like, well, maybe we can swap, just rotate, Unit 3 up and move Unit 2 back. And so we can try to hopefully accommodate for that, because that was the main one that we saw consistently that many teachers had brought up.
Great. Ours was a lot of pacing. There was a lot of not enough time, which we always talk about. I think there was a lot of stuff that was jam-packed into the September expectation for the core connections, because we're also piloting the core connections. So that has a lot to do with it as well. The pacing, the normal pacing, I think it goes along the way that TWIG intended it to. I know that Garden for Life is important just because we have the plants at the end of the year, but also they were like, do we plant it before spring break, after spring break? Are they going to die? Do I have to come in during spring break and water them? And you're like, no, you don't have to. Manage it to what works best for you. I guess I always think of the curriculum as like a guide to lead us somewhere, but if it's not manageable or it's not going to make sense for you and your kids, don't do it that way. Still teach it, still expose it, still use it, but do it in the way that works best for you and your kids. So then you're all still getting the same information. It's just at a paceful mindfulness of what works for you.
Right.
Because they still need that information and you still need to teach it. But obviously, you're not going to plant something and then let it die over spring break and hope it's okay. And then come back after spring break and you're like, oh, it's dead. I have to do it again. Just do it all at one time. So you can move those things around that make sense. But the pacing guide does a lot of Kate for that as well. It is something that we've looked at and we're like, okay, let's not have them plant before spring break. But yeah, I know a lot of the feedback for second grade was just that it was too busy and it's been hard to keep up. So that was something we really wanted to be mindful of, looking at science and saying, okay, where is it that things can be combined, or where are things that you can have, like, you don't have to do this, but we want you to try if you have a 15-minute time period. And like, we've broken down our lessons from 45 minutes to 30 minutes, getting that like core information that's needed, because we don't want them to miss it when they move on to the next grade level. So that was something that we really had to look into and see. And then also moving certain things that go along with CKLA. So we wanted to put My Journey West and Westward Expansion together, and then move the other ones to different spots.
That is one of the most powerful things of core connections to our integrated scope and sequence, is sometimes even when you've got things that you can combine like that, it really cuts down on the instructional time needed. Because if I'm teaching it in CKLA, and I'm teaching it in Twig, I can just do a quick review. Remember this morning when we talked about blah, blah, blah? That's like, and it sort of condenses that instructional time that you need sometimes.
Yeah.
Super powerful.
Which is really helpful.
Yep. So part of your task was to look at maps. I think Anne asked you to do that as if you were a brand new teacher. So think back to when you were a brand new teacher, and what did you need from a document like a curriculum map?
The curriculum map and the pacing is super important. I'm a type A teacher, and so I like things laid out. If you just gave me books and said, teach this, I would be completely lost. So really looking at that guidance as a new teacher and being able to say, okay, well, I have X amount of days to teach this material. I have to figure out the pacing. I have to figure out how I'm going to get this, when these common assessments are coming up, when I have to have these dates done. And so that, for me, the mapping and the pacing is like the most important thing as a new teacher coming in, that work is done for you, that you're coming in and you're like, I have my map of the year. This is what I have to accomplish. Because then it's so much more feasible for you to be able to dig in,
Right.
than saying, here we go, just figure it out.
Right.
Yeah, I think me as a new teacher, I had a very experienced teacher that I got to teach with. So that was really helpful, because she could walk me through everything that I ever needed to know, which was amazing. So that was really nice. But honestly, planning and having those maps for your planning sessions when you sit down makes planning go so much faster. Because I remember when we first sat down, we didn't have anything like that. And we were just given like the school year and what like the days in school look like, and which days you have off and which days are half days and which days, like, so that was like our guide that we had.
Right.
And so we're just like, okay, good luck. And then we would use whatever she did from the following year. And that was our curriculum map that we had. And she had all of her notes written in there of all the different things that she did, or different modifications for the lessons that she made. So having a curriculum map would have made those planning nights, like Thursday nights, go so much faster. Instead of being there till 6, 7 o'clock at night, we would have only been there till like maybe 4 or 5,
Right.
And it would have been that one time, and we probably would have been able to plan like 3-4 weeks down the line instead of just the 1 week at a time. And so that would have been super helpful to have. And then you also know, like you said, the assessments, like that was also super important, because you want to know exactly what is it that I'm looking for, what is it that I'm teaching for, because that's always something to keep in the back of our minds. Like, we're teaching, but what are we teaching for? What's the mastery expectation? Because that's what we really want our kids to identify by the end of something, because we don't want to give them a test and be like, okay, good luck. Let's see what you remember. We really want them to like know it and feel confident that they know it,
Right.
like giving them a guide themselves to get to where it is that we need them to go. So they would have been so helpful, especially all the links and everything that we put in them.
Yes.
Oh, it's been really nice.
Well, and I especially think about those teachers, because every year we have teachers that we hire fresh out of college, and they don't start until after the school year started. And I think that is such a heavy lift for any teacher, but especially a brand new teacher. And so something like a curriculum map can really help them just wrap their head around the job that they've just landed in, right?
Right? They can really see, okay, second grade
Yes.
science. This is where I need to be. Okay, great. Good to see. This is the link I can click to the
Exactly.
lesson. Okay, lovely. This is the quiz we need. Thank you. Yeah. And also it grades it for me. Love, even better. Yeah. That's nice. Yeah. I would have loved that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing, just nationally in education, we spent a lot of time in the past really focusing on reading instruction and math instruction. And science and social studies often have been seen as extra or if I have time. And I think that tide is turning a little bit now. And as I think both of you have mentioned, those instructional minutes are tight, right? It's awfully tempting to say, oh, I'll do science a different time. But what's the impact on your students when science is reduced or skipped?
For me, science is really important, and we're hitting so many of our literacy skills in science between reading the articles, them having to annotate and take notes, and then having to write informative essays or opinion-based essays based on the science topics makes it so that it really is incorporated within our literacy standards. So losing those would just mean that we're learning less. We're just learning less materials. We're not going to know about these. That curiosity that kids have for science is just going to kind of diminish, and sad. So yeah, I mean, I think it's super important to teach all the subjects, and you just have to realize that so much of it is built into our literacy. And those are all important things for kids to know just in general.
Right.
I have found that most of my behaviors go away during science. Like, they get so excited. Like, even my kids who would have behaviors because they're like, oh, it's reading today. Okay. Can I not do that? But then you tell them it's science and then we're going to read this article and they're like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm so into this. What? We're going to learn about glaciers today? That's lovely. You know, like, I will read about glaciers, but I won't read about, what Paul was doing. So it's just like you see the behavior switch just because they know it's science and they know they can be hands-on and they know they can do something with this information and it's something relatable to something that maybe they've done before or that they've seen before in their outside world. I think science is so related to outside world and so is social studies that it's like real world situation stuff that it's just nice to have that connection. And whereas reading and math, they're like, oh, reading and math is something that is, not every day. When am I ever going to use algorithm? When you're like, you use it every day, but they don't know that. But then if you put it in science, you're like, we're going to collect this data. How many people have this? How many people have this? Okay, now let's add them together. How many people are we going to survey? You can really incorporate all of those things. So science instruction, I just find I don't have behaviors, which is great.
That is great.
Because you can get so much more taught when you
Right.
don't have behaviors, which is huge.
And kids feel successful, right? Those kids who might be acting out at other times during the day, if they can feel engaged and feel like your star student, that's powerful. You
And
can
they get
build
their,
on that.
like, most of the time, too, they're like, the first one's done. They're like, look what my
Yes.
team did. It's so great. Like, we had so much fun. I learned this, this, and this. And you're like, okay, they're like,
Yeah.
when earlier you wouldn't write your name on a paper, but right now we're doing all the things. I also love science too because it's very team oriented.
Right.
There's not a lot of times where they have opportunities to work in teams and to really build that team connection, especially in second grade. I feel like that's when they first start realizing, oh, I'm going to be with these people for a long period of time. I should probably know how to work with them. And so it's really cool to watch them like interact with one another and bounce ideas off one another because it's like the first time that they've ever been really able to do that. And you can work on so many SEL skills during that time, which is so cool to see because they're really like, okay, we're going to have this argument, but is it really an argument at this point? No, it's just bouncing inquiry off of inquiry. We're going to try building our bridge this way. Okay, but that didn't work very well. Okay, let's try it this way. I think it'll work better. We should use this material. All right, you go back and you ask for more of this and you go ask for more of, like, having that communication is huge because they don't have any other opportunities during the day to have like good conversations like that when it
Right.
has to do with academics. Instead, it's like, what'd you have for lunch or what'd you play out at recess?
Yeah. It's also just such a great life skill. An employer is also looking for grown-up workers who can work together and be creative and think differently on all of those things that you just mentioned, right?
Yeah, you should be able to work with a team. You should be able
Yes.
to have that conversation. Like, I feel like those are just life skills.
I love the collaboration in science. And it's like literally one of our standards. You need to understand how to collaborate, even if you maybe aren't best friends at recess. You have to be able to work together.
Yep.
So that's such an important part of my classroom. And the fact that they get to build and do hands-on and create turbines that work with real motors and make the light bulb light up with a battery. It's so exciting for them, and they feel so accomplished, like within that group of people, that it gives them a bond.
Yeah, and they're like, look at that group over there. Look what they did. Or like bouncing off ideas. Okay, what if we tried their idea, but we did it better? We did it this way, you know? It's just a lot of fun because you can actually see it. And you're like, yeah, that's how actual people work in the real world. Like, I would go into a teacher's classroom and be like, oh my gosh, I love that idea, but how could I do it in a
Exactly.
different way that works best for me? You know, like you want to use other people's brain power as part of your brain power, you know? Like, we
Right.
should collaboratively be working together, not separate in our own little like boxes.
Right. Which also, that speaks to the power of the cadre, right? We have teachers from all grade levels who come together and different schools and really do that work and that thinking together. So that's a cool connection that connects right back to your cadre.
I love working with other teachers from like
Yes.
other buildings just because I can see what they're doing and how they're doing it and then see, okay, how could I also kind of incorporate that? And it's cool to see, what are you doing with your instructional minutes? How are you getting all of this in? Let me see that. And then let be like, okay, let's think about what I'm doing. Is it actually meaningful, or could I do something different that would make it more meaningful and kind of get more of those proper instructional minutes? Or what if they had a good idea on how they did a lesson?
Right.
I could get that idea off of them. So I've always loved bouncing ideas off of other second grade teachers. I feel like you just learn so many cool strategies and skills that you would have never thought of.
For most of us, education is not just our job. It's our hobby. It's our interest. It's, this is the stuff that we read about, the stuff that we look for on the internet. It's deep. It's bigger than just a job.
Yeah. I tell my husband all the time.
Yes.
I'm like, this is my life.
Yes.
This is just you. If you walked into my classroom, like, that is me. Like,
Yeah.
you would see me to a T in there. And that's just like my personality of like who I am. Like,
Yes.
I am a teacher, but also deeply in me, I am just an educator, like, to heart. Like, I want to
Right.
learn more. Like, my best learning style is through teaching. So therefore, I learn the best by teaching it. And I connect with other things by working with other educators. That's just how I learn best. So that's just me.
So, what would you say to a teacher who maybe feels unsure about teaching science or says, oh, I'm just not a science person? What would you say?
I
to
was
somebody?
that teacher. So for me, I'm a math brain, and math is my favorite subject. I think everyone in our building knows I'm the math person. And so for me, when I was asked to be on the science cadre, I was like, well, is there room on the math cadre? And it was like, can you do science? And I was like, I'm going to be completely transparent. I struggle to get through science. And so Anne sort of gave me a challenge, and she was like, look, do this, and that's going to really help you really figure it out. And once I really started diving in and making the time and the effort, and rather than doing a coach lesson to watch, where they get to watch an experiment happen rather than doing it, I was like, I'm not going to be lazy. We're going to find the materials, we're going to figure it out, and we're going to do it. And it just made science so much more fun. So now my kids are excited about math, but they're also excited about science.
I would say do it, but that's just me. Science is what I first started teaching when I was a student teacher, because my teaching partner, that was not something she usually got in. So she's, oh, student teacher, teach science. So I got to really dig into the old science curriculum. And then I was like, okay, reading from a book is really boring. So how can I make this more fun? So then I sat up till like hours in the night making all of these materials for this like interactive science lesson that I was so excited for. And the kids got so excited. She's like, I have not seen the kids this excited for science in a really long time. And so that was really cool to see. And they just were so excited. So then anytime I was going to get up to teach, they were like, yes, she's going to do something cool. Like, even when I didn't teach science, though, they were like, oh, she's going to do something cool because she did it before. So she's got to do something cool again. So it just made like teaching more fun because you could see the excitement with the kids. So just knowing if you teach just one science lesson, one hands-on thing, watch and see what your kids will do. And just see their eyes light up and them get so excited to do that next hands-on experiment. Because I'm sure once you brought up those materials and you brought everything out, those kids were like, yeah, we should do this more often. What have we been doing? And you're
100%.
like, okay, yeah, I should do this more often. Because they just get so stoked.
Right.
And that's the point of teaching, is to see the excitement in their learning. Why would we not want to bring that aha moment to the kid? Like, that's where our love of education comes from.
Right. I also always think about what the science of reading tells us, which is that background knowledge actually helps reading comprehension. So the more our kids know about science, the more that helps their reading comprehension. And all those things just go together. All right. How might you finish this sentence? Every student deserves high-quality science instruction because...
I would say every student is curious, and it really makes their critical thinking skills and their problem-solving skills, it really puts those into use.
I would say it opens up the world around you. You will start questioning everything, which is the point of being a kid. You should question everything.
Thank you both for being here today. Thank you for sitting for an interview after a long day of thinking hard with the cadre. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate your leadership.
Thanks for having
us.
Carrie and Christine, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your honesty, and your passion for science teaching and learning. Your stories are such a strong reminder that great science instruction isn't an extra. It's a launch pad for literacy, collaboration, problem solving, and student engagement. If you're listening and you've ever thought, I'm not really a science person, take their advice. Start with one hands-on lesson. Open the door to curiosity and watch what happens. The energy tends to take care of the rest. Thank you all for listening to TandL Talks. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a colleague and keep the learning conversations going in your building. Until next time, keep the curiosity high and keep lighting up classrooms.